Hello and welcome. I'm Maria Ressa. We're sitting on the sidelines of the World Economic Forum with Jaime Augusto Zobel de Ayala, one of the World Economic Forum's stalwarts in the past. Jaime, please, thank you for joining us.
Not at all, Maria. It's always a pleasure.
So what's the first day been like?
Well, it's been great. I think the good thing about the World Economic Forum is they built up momentum over the years. They have credibility. They bring a great crowd in. They bring a good mixture of administration types, academics, businessmen, and the kind of attention that the Philippines is getting at this time, I think, is just fabulous. So it's been very nice and good crowd.
It's so interesting because there is a very rosy picture that's
Right.
painted. It's backed by statistics of a country on the takeoff, the
Right.
Asian economic miracle. But what are the dangers ahead for this?
Well, the dangers, like anything in life, is never to be complacent and to build sustainability for the future. Success is wonderful, and all of us, even in the corporate sector, face this. There are always cycles to things, and the key is to use good times to prepare for the challenges ahead. But that having been said, the Philippines has been having just a great run, and a lot of good things have been done. I think the president has managed to build a great deal of credibility around his governance agenda. That's allowed the economic cluster and the economic team to build on the momentum that comes with that. And they've done it wisely, creatively, and with their own momentum as well. So I think we're reaping the benefits of a new credibility in the country.
The corruption scandals that
Yes.
have been unearthed, people, investors look at it as a good thing because it's been unearthed and it's
Right.
institutionalized corruption, yet at the same time, that can take a toll also. How
Oh,
far
absolutely.
are we on this?
Well, I think transparency is a good thing, and I think if there's one thing that's defined President Aquino's presidency is to unearth issues of like this and not hide them and put them on the table. He has been quite systematic in the way he's dealt with them. But at the same time, in parallel, you've got an economic story that's been quite productive.
Yes.
I think generally the way I feel is people have been giving the president the credit, the benefit of the doubt. They feel he's addressing those issues while at the same time keeping the engine of growth in place. Our job, I guess, in the business sector is keep that engine of growth going, and we're all trying to contribute to it in the best way we can.
Is there a point when too much of the exposés
Yes.
weaken the confidence in institutions like the Senate, for example?
Well, I think to a certain extent there has been a systematic approach. Of course, it's received a lot of news. It's out there in the open. Issues of credibility one has to be careful about. I mean, they're always a balance. Right now we're at the stage where transparency is being encouraged, and so it has not had a negative effect. I think resolution has to come out of this, a process for defining what is right and not, and holding people accountable for what is wrong. Those are very important issues to bring closure, even if it's painful closure. So I guess people are hopeful that that process will take place.
Are you hopeful that justice will actually happen, or will this be one of those things that continues for a long
Well,
time?
I think there has been a process in place. I think the president's team have some very capable people that have been analyzing this. I think what has been viewed in the Senate is an investigative world. I think more important is the legal process that takes place with serious people on that process. I think there's some very capable women behind that process, and
The
I think I think there's a lot of trust in their judgment and the way they're handling it. So far, I think it's going well.
The president has 2 years left in his administration.
Yes.
What do you want to see? What needs to happen?
Yeah.
And what do you want to see happen in those 2 years?
Well, I think as always happens with any administration, the first couple of years are building confidence and momentum. I think there's a lot of momentum now. The story of the country is good, the credibility is there. The key is really to take that momentum and just give it everything you've got all the way to the end. To be fair to the president, a lot of this, with respect to infrastructure, which is always on everybody's mind, as a country, we've grown tremendously. The population has grown, we've got a young population, the economy has grown. As happens with something like that, infrastructure has to be there to support that growth. We are, as a country, a decade or two behind where we should be. So there's been a lot of focus on the PPP projects, the public-private partnerships, but to be fair to the government, if you look at what's been taking place at the DPWH and other areas, I mean, people like Secretary Singson have really been overweighting that sector in a very productive way. There's just been a lot taking place on the rollout of infrastructure. Unfortunately, there's been less focus on that.
Yeah.
been more focused on the public-private partnerships, which have been a little bit slower, but
Yes.
now we're building momentum. We're going on to next week. There are two big bids that we'll be participating in. They're not small, and like that, there will be more. So I think the momentum is there. Just take advantage of the last 2 years to keep building it, put some organization emphasis around it, and some political will around the process to get things done.
Is the Philippines ready for the ASEAN economic community?
I think so, very much so. I think people have seen this ASEAN economic community as kind of a preparation, a date, and then all these things happen. You know, that's not really quite what's been happening. There have been a lot of wins with each passing month, each passing 6 months, each passing year. We're really moved already, beyond and ahead of time to a fairly low tariff environment for most goods and services. That's already the environment we're in. And many of the issues that ASEAN has been trying to institute have really been happening. Even if, let's say, we're 80% done by the time the deadline comes, 80% is a lot. So I see it as a positive process that's begun to take place. And the momentum of lifting all the standards in the region to a new level is good for all of us. I don't believe that there should be really hard rules. I think there should be momentum forward to a new set of standards, and I believe that's happening. We're all growing as countries, and the region has increased its trade among our countries, and it's an exciting time for all of us.
AAC 2015 as a
Yes.
goal, right? The agreement was signed in 2007.
That's right.
But a last report, recent report by the ADB,
Right.
actually said that 77% of the companies that they surveyed didn't even know about these free trade agreements
Right.
they could take advantage of.
Yeah.
What is that gap? And if the companies who are supposed to take advantage of it don't know it, you go to the people on the streets,
Yeah.
they barely know what ASEAN. You ask
Well,
them.
I think some countries are more advanced than others. We tend to be a little bit insular around the ASEAN arena. I think a lot of it came from the fact that we've had one big crisis and one smaller one. Back in 1997, there was a large Asian crisis. You know, there was a lot happening between Asian countries in the 90s. People forget that. 97 happened, and people retreated back to their holes and their homes and their country and national boundaries. And then they started coming out again, and 2008 hit. And that was a more global phenomenon, and people paused again. I think there has been a natural movement. While many companies are not fully aware, a lot of them must be small and medium-sized entities. I generally think that they've all been adjusting in their own way to a new reality, and even if they don't really know it, they're feeling it in the price of goods, the way things get done, how transactions take place. Not everybody's cognizant of a broad framework that drives this. They're just cognizant of the way they move their goods on a daily basis, and that has become more efficient, more cost-effective, and in a grouping of markets around Southeast Asia, which have been really demand-driven and doing very well.
In anything like this, any change, there will be winners and losers.
Sure.
Who could lose
Yeah.
with the integration?
Well, I think the ones who will lose are the ones who've been comfortable or thrived in a highly protective environment. I think there are less and less of those industries. Of course, they still exist. But anyone who has not had the kind of pressures to bring down costs, to be more efficient, to take productivity up, to look for talent that is imaginative, find solutions, anyone in industries that have been very closed will invariably have a tough time adjusting. Anyone in export industries by their very nature are usually quite competitive. If not, they wouldn't be able to thrive. So those are already okay. It's maybe very entrenched domestic industries that have lived in a fairly protective environment that will have a tough time.
How prepared is the Aala Group? What are your plans?
Well, I like to think that we, actually, I think through all our companies, we're all in very competitive industries. Real estate is very competitive across the board. The banking sector is very competitive,
Right.
much more so than ever before.
Yes.
Water distribution, of course, is a monopoly, but highly regulated and with some very tight controls.
Yeah.
And then we have a couple of export industries that have had to deal in a global environment. We're as prepared, I think, as can be. We like an environment where there's a lot of transparency, where the rules are clear. ASEAN is encouraging that. This is good for us.
Fantastic. Well, thank you very much.
Not at all, Maria. It's always a pleasure.
It's great to have you. We've been speaking with Jaime Augusto Zobel de Ayala, the chairman of the Aala Group of companies here in the Philippines, talking about the country, the ASEAN integration, and much more. Thank you for joining us.